This morning, you probably ate breakfast without thinking twice. By midday, you likely sat down for lunch. And tonight, dinner will happen again, right on schedule. You never question this rhythm. It feels automatic, almost hardwired into you. But here's a fact that rarely comes up. Nobody actually designed this pattern for you. No doctor prescribed it. No ancient sage handed it down. 3 meals a day was never a rule of biology. It's a story, built piece by piece over thousands of years, and it might be one of the strangest stories in human history. To understand where it came from, we have to travel back much further than you'd expect. Roughly 23,000 years ago, on the edge of the Sea of Galilee in Israel, there existed a settlement archaeologists call Ohalo II. Excavators found remains of small brush huts, each built around a hearth. Nearby, they found traces of more than 140 plant species and nuts, plus bones from birds, fish, and small game. These were hunter-gatherers, and they ate whenever food was available. Not on a schedule, not 3 times, not even twice consistently. Mealtimes didn't exist because there was no dependable food supply to build one around. Some days brought abundance, others nothing at all. Eating wasn't a habit. It was an outcome, the result of a successful hunt or lucky foraging. Then something shifted the entire trajectory of human life. Around 10,000 BCE, agriculture emerged across the Fertile Crescent, covering territory now known as Iraq, Iran, and Turkey. For the first time, people had a food supply they could actually count on. They no longer needed to chase their next meal. Because food stayed put, people did too. Villages formed. Cooking grew more sophisticated. Sharing food became communal. Yet even with all this progress, a fixed 3-meal structure still hadn't arrived. What people ate and when still depended heavily on culture, geography, and daylight. Ancient Egypt offers one of the earliest glimpses of organized eating. Egyptians typically ate twice a day. A light morning meal of bread and beer, followed by a heavier evening meal of vegetables, lentils, and whatever protein was available. 2 meals, not 3. Move to ancient Greece, and it gets more familiar. The Greeks had akritisma, bread soaked in wine, followed by ariston at midday, and deipnon, a fuller evening gathering. But these weren't rigid events everyone followed. Plenty skipped one or more, depending on work and means. Then there's Rome, arguably the most surprising case of all. One of history's most organized civilizations, yet Romans were suspicious of eating more than once a day. Historian Caroline Yeldham notes they were fixated on digestion, viewing multiple meals as gluttony rather than health. Their main meal, cena, came at midday, while a small morning snack called ientaculum barely counted as real food. This single-meal mindset dominated much of Europe for centuries afterward. Everything shifted again once European settlers reached the Americas. What they saw genuinely unsettled them. Historian Abigail Carroll, author of 3 Squares, describes how colonists watched native communities eat in ways that looked disorganized. Native Americans fasted when it made sense, adjusted intake with the seasons, and followed no rigid timetable. To European eyes, this looked chaotic, even primitive. That bias eventually helped push the 3-meal model across the globe. So where did the actual 3-meal structure come from? The answer takes us to Europe in the 1500s and 1600s, when society began organizing itself around the clock rather than the sun. One of the earliest institutions to formally lock in 3 meals a day was the British Royal Navy. From at least the 16th century, sailors got a consistent breakfast of ship's biscuit and salted meat, a substantial midday meal, and a lighter dinner. The logic was entirely functional. Sailors needed fuel at predictable intervals for grueling physical labor, and a fixed schedule made that possible. But it was the Industrial Revolution that truly cemented 3 meals into daily life. Beginning around 1760 in Britain and spreading through Europe and North America, industrialization reshaped humanity's relationship with time. For the first time, huge numbers of people weren't working fields on loose seasonal patterns. They were clocking into factories with rigid, standardized hours, arrive at a set time, work a set shift, take 1 break midday. Breakfast before the shift, lunch during the break, dinner once home. It mapped perfectly onto factory life. 3 meals a day wasn't a discovery about nutrition. It was a practical solution to a problem created by industrial labor. As cities expanded and people left farm life behind, breakfast grew more important. The word literally means to break the fast from the night before. In medieval Christian Europe, eating before morning mass was often discouraged, so breakfast as a proper meal was slow to take hold. But skipping food before a 10 or 12-hour factory shift wasn't spiritual discipline. It was a health risk, so breakfast became essential. Dinner shifted too. Before industrialization, the biggest meal was eaten at midday, when sunlight was strongest. But as lighting improved and shifts stretched into the evening, the largest meal migrated later. By the mid-1800s, evening dinner had become the standard across Europe and the United States. Then, in the early 20th century, the final piece clicked into place, and it came from someone unexpected. Businessman John Harvey Kellogg. Kellogg developed cornflakes as a health food, and through relentless marketing in the 1920s and 1930s, the idea that breakfast was the day's most important meal took hold across the culture. This wasn't purely science. It was, in large part, commercial strategy. Cereal companies needed people eating breakfast every morning, and the campaign worked. Now here's the question that actually matters most. Does your biology genuinely want you eating 3 times a day? The answer might not be what you expect. Every human body runs on a circadian rhythm, an internal 24-hour clock that governs far more than just sleep. Research published in the journal Current Biology has shown that meal timing directly affects blood glucose regulation, insulin sensitivity, metabolic rate, and even how fat cells behave at a cellular level. In the morning, as cortisol naturally rises, your body becomes remarkably efficient at processing whatever you eat. Insulin sensitivity peaks around this time, meaning carbohydrates and sugars are more likely to become usable energy rather than get stored as fat. Eat that exact same meal late at night, though, and the outcome changes noticeably. Blood sugar spikes higher, sleep quality suffers, and fat storage increases. Even your hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin, follow this same internal rhythm. Your body actually starts preparing for meals before you take a single bite, a phenomenon researchers call physiological food anticipation. Your biology isn't passive in any of this. It studies your habits, anticipates your routines, and quietly adjusts itself around whatever pattern you give it, which reveals something genuinely important. What matters most isn't necessarily the number of meals on your plate each day. It's when those meals happen. 2 meals, 3 meals, or even 4 can all work reasonably well, as long as most of your food intake happens during daylight hours, when your body is metabolically primed to handle it. But biology only tells part of this story. For more than 23,000 years, humans have gathered around food for reasons that go far beyond simple survival. Long before factories existed, before office schedules, before cereal commercials, shared meals functioned as one of the primary ways communities built trust, deepened relationships, and signaled safety to one another. Research in social psychology consistently shows that people who regularly eat meals with others report higher levels of happiness, stronger social connections, and a deeper sense of belonging within their community. Whatever its tangled historical origins, 3 meals a day gives us 3 built-in opportunities every single day to do something deeply, fundamentally human. So why do we actually eat 3 meals a day? Because naval sailors needed a dependable schedule. Because factory workers needed predictable breaks between shifts. Because medieval Christians weren't supposed to eat before Mass. Because industrial society rebuilt daily life around the factory clock. Because a cereal company turned breakfast into a business opportunity worth billions. And underneath every one of those historical forces, human biology already operated on rhythms that happened to line up reasonably well with the pattern that emerged. 3 meals a day was never a biological law carved into our DNA, but it wasn't a meaningless invention either. It's the product of centuries of religion, agriculture, industry, commerce, and human physiology, all quietly shaping one another across thousands of years. Tonight, you'll probably sit down for dinner, just like billions of people before you have done. And now, unlike most of them, you'll actually know why.